She befriended me to hide the fact that I had caught my husband of 20 years cheating with his younger business partner. However, when she discovered him with another lady, karma got them both. Hello, everyone. I've never been here before. I suppose I simply have to share my tale and get this out there. My husband, who has been married for around 20 years, has been having an affair with his business colleague. Over the past 20 years, my 45-year-old husband, James, and I, a 45-year-old woman, have established a life together in Seattle, enduring both actual and figurative storms. To give you some history, our narrative started on the University of Washington campus. We had big hopes and were young. We clicked right away. James had a quick wit, a smile that made my knees buckle, and an erudite, engaging personality. He was pursuing a business degree, and his drive was apparent in all that he did. He was adored by all. He simply exuded charisma, and intelligent, or so I believed. I never imagined that he would be so foolish as to cheat on me. Alternatively, I majored in art. Even if our worlds couldn't have been more dissimilar, they managed to smoothly clash and blend. Back then, I was really insecure and shy. He was the first serious boyfriend I had ever had, and the fact that James was giving me his time astounded me. I was never the kind to attract males' attention. I melted in his arms and remained there for a while. We met at a coffee shop close to university, where we both sought cover from the city's frequent rains. It was surprisingly never very busy. We both relished the peace and quiet. I recall that when he came over, I was drawing in my notebook and enjoying a cappuccino. It was unusually crowded on this particular day, so he requested if he might use my table with a warm smile. I accepted, and the foundation for the rest of our lives was laid by that small gesture of civility. As we conversed, it became clear that we shared many similarities. We had similar tastes in music, literature, and travel, which fueled our passion to see the world. James's laughter was contagious, and he had a talent for making me laugh. We ended up talking about our goals and aims, as well as the difficulties we encountered for hours in that quaint coffee shop. Over many hours of conversation, long walks along the university's grounds, and joint study sessions, our bond grew. We found a connection that went beyond our differences during those times. Our love grew and strengthened through late-night talks, college lectures, and shared dreams. Despite our divergent trajectories, we came to see that we were two halves of a whole, each of which enhanced the other in ways that words could never adequately describe. Our college experience was filled with the struggles and victories that every student encounters, but it was also a period of personal development and exploration. Our love served as a solid anchor in the ever-shifting sea of life, and we encouraged one another while we followed our unique passions. After a few years, I pursued my love of art, and James became a partner at a well-known corporation, but our relationship remained strong. Despite the fact that we were childless, our home was full with love. Neither of us appeared to care that it was something that never actually materialized. Seeing James put on his expertly tailored suits each morning and set off to take on the corporate world made me incredibly proud of him. I always thought he might succeed, but I had no idea that his accomplishments would bring us to where we are now. Emily, 37F, quickly joined James's company by using a false identity to safeguard her identity. Emily is a char, a bright, driven woman in her late 20s with lovely blonde hair, extremely sharp. I trust her with my life because I adore her so much. Emily and I clicked right away when we finally met at a company function. As if we had been friends for years, we spoke and laughed for hours on end while exchanging secrets and anecdotes. She had done a great job for James in the business. I like to tell myself that anyway. And it should have been obvious to me why. She was probably licking his dick the entire time. She certainly has a gift for forming friendships. She merely desired to be near me in order to ensure that I was unaware of her and James. I must admit that James worked late into the night before she arrived, but I didn't really think twice about it. I simply assumed that was a trade secret. Then I started to feel envious when Emily joined. I simply had a terrible sensation that something was happening. When I questioned him who he was working with, he claimed to be at the office by himself and never brought up Emily. I called from the street to see if he would answer when I saw Emily's car driving past the office a couple times, and he did. When I asked him if he would be returning home soon, he would acknowledge that he was simply doing some math with Emily. He would then give me an estimated time of return, and he would always arrive at home on schedule. Still, something didn't feel quite right. I looked at his clothes and found that his shirts never smelled of perfume or segs, and there was never lipstick on the collar. He would physically change after his escapades before he got home, though, and I subsequently discovered that he kept his dry-cleaned clothes in a closet at work. I'm sick, I am aware. I couldn't even check his business phone because I was never allowed access to it due to confidentiality. I still checked his personal phone in spite of that, though. However, it was completely clean. To find out what he might be hiding, I even downloaded an app on it. Not at all. Nothing. Completely pristine. When James would tell me Emily wasn't going on a business trip, I thought that was really strange and suspicious. I invited Emily over a few times for a girls' night and some wine and cheese, but she was always conveniently either sick and unable to come or heading to Vancouver for a weekend visit with her mother. Well, I didn't think it was true. In addition, I started to feel a little neglected, so I would urge him to spend a few evenings at home. He seemed to be working a lot more hours since Emily had started. Okay, he was working the hours. Not with me, though. Perhaps once a week we would have segs, but he never showed up. I managed to capture him. He merely pretended. Don't tell me how. Some things must be kept secret. However, he was undoubtedly acting. He said he was simply exhausted and dehydrated when I questioned him about it at the time. I went on to say that he has been working excessively and that he hasn't been spending enough time with me at home, which is now having an impact on our segs' lives. Then he became enraged and attempted to place the blame on his busy schedule for his failure to complete the task. I refused to accept it. He's spending more time with Emily than his own wife, I reiterated. He then claims that I'm exaggerating and that I'm unaware of the pressure he's under. Then I say, I don't know how he keeps up with her, and I can't compete with a woman who is almost 10 years younger than me. I really wanted him to confess something. Then he claims that he doesn't understand what I'm discussing. I'm pretty sure you do, I respond, prodding the bear. I can't deal with you right now, he says. After packing some clothes, he departs from the residence. I made the decision to conduct some independent research the following day. To check if his car is present, I drive past his place of employment in the morning. It isn't. I suspected I knew just where he would be. Emily's. As I head to Emily's condo, I discover his car parked on the street, about a block away. I parked directly behind his vehicle and proceeded to the front door. My phone begins to record. I don't immediately hear anything when I ring the doorbell. Then I hear a disturbance. I ring once more. Then the door opens and I hear someone coming down some steps. It's Emily, and she's dressed in little shorts, an enormous t-shirt, and disheveled hair. Up. Why are you here? I'm trying to find my spouse. I'd like to talk to James. James? Why is James present? Tell me, please. What are you discussing, Op? Is everything okay? She clearly hid his shoes before unlocking the door, so I force my way inside and search for them. I see 2 cups of coffee on the coffee table as I up the stairs and enter her living room. Have you got any company? I say. Please, Ops, I would like an explanation. As I enter her bedroom, I cut her off and say, I don't know what you're looking for. My husband is sitting on the side of the bed in his boxers, looking like a deer in headlights. It doesn't look like this, Op. I crashed here because I had nowhere else to go. Oh, you struck her between the legs? Then Emily approaches me and tells me to go out. I also tell James not to come home, and I'll pack and ship his belongings here. I tell him not to touch me as he tries to follow me out the door and tries to grip my waist. I tell him it's over and I'm done with him. He's a cheating swine, and I gave him all I had. Then he begins begging and follows me down the street in his boxers. I was faithful. Through thick and thin, I stood by him. I gave up both my profession and my passions. I only needed to make a few phone calls because my STBX has legal pals all over the place, due to the type of business they are in. I'm all set there since, fortunately, our friends always liked me more when James started to sour relations. I desired to defeat him. I was plainly nothing to him, yet he had been the love of my life. Since neither of us had anything before to our marriage, we never signed a prenuptial agreement. We had nothing to begin with. I accompanied him the entire time. I gave it my all. I now want to know what went into this. If I've come this far for someone like him to cheat on me, I'll be damned. I'll prepare the divorce documents and have them sent to his workplace. I finally blocked Mike after he kept calling me. His car wasn't parked anywhere, according to my girlfriend, who helped me pack his belongings as I promised and dropped them off to Emily's house. Evidently, he wasn't present. Emily had the audacity to visit the house later that week and tries to explain that what I seen wasn't the complete picture. She added that she no longer speaks to James. I watched her through my Ring camera while standing behind a closed door and rolling my eyes. When I threatened to contact the police if she didn't leave, she said she simply needed to tell me something and apologized, etc. I tell her she has 2 minutes before I phone the cops, and I begin filming. She begins by admitting that she and James had been having sexual relations soon after they began working together. Well, yes, I was definitely picking up on that. She claimed that during James's recent business trip to Los Angeles, she had recently spotted him with this other woman. She claimed that she had attempted to enter his room and woo him one evening after they had decided to end their affair when he claimed that I was watching them. Things didn't sound right when she heard this woman in his room. Not guilty. Furthermore, the following evening, she managed to catch them in the pub. She persuaded IT to grant access to his emails once they returned from the business vacation. Additionally, this moron has been sending her sexual messages via his work emails. He likely believed that I would never perceive this way. I couldn't really process what she had just said, so I stood there dumbfounded. How come I was able to choke out at last? She claimed that it was a late night at work and that he approached her soon after she began working there. She claimed that one event led to another after they were drinking after celebrating a significant victory. She claimed that in order for me to never find out, she felt the need to become friends with me. Yes, once more, that's what I felt. But after a while, she felt horrible and came to truly like me. They nevertheless continued to engage in casual sex despite this. Most of the time, she added, it was merely a method to release tension. I urged her to halt and go. I lost my ability to hear. I felt like throwing up. I called the jerk as soon as Emily left. I am fully informed. Emily filled me in on everything. I made a fast phone call and had him served that same day. He was pleading with me, claiming that what Emily was saying was false since they were involved in a lawsuit, and he was attempting to phone me in addition to texting and leaving me messages. She was attempting to blackmail him while he was attempting to terminate their business arrangement. I wrote him back, blackmailing him with this new blonde because I couldn't help myself. I also sent a picture of her. Then he remained silent. Because she and James were involved in a litigation that I didn't learn about until later, Emily also didn't communicate with me after that. However, I suppose he did attempt to break off our relationship since she didn't like it when I began to question him. Since things were becoming unpleasant with her, the side piece, he tried to fire her from the company, but she wasn't having any of it. She then filed a lawsuit. Then he filed a countersuit. She discovered him cheating on her and me, followed him to Los Angeles because she wanted to, and knew about all of his subsequent work travels. Funny. She must have been unable to kick him where it hurt until she involved me. She was aware that I could take it all. And I did. After all, we had to divide and divide half of our investments, and I ended up with a house in Seattle. He also handed me a portion in the business a long time ago, which I still own. Since he was essentially in charge of everything up until this point, I need to get my hands dirty and truly understand what it means. In any case, let's assume that I can live a happy retirement and continue creating art, which is what I love to do. In this time, I've managed to complete a number of pieces, which I hope to exhibit in the coming weeks at a local gallery owned by one of my closest friends. Although it's not how I expected my life to unfold, things rarely go as planned. Let's go on to the next tale. Narrative 2. found out that my pregnant wife had been having an affair with her yoga trainer for a year. By revealing her nudity, ruining her reputation, and obtaining full custody, I exacted revenge. Prior to our divorce, my ex-wife Jessica and I were only wed for 2 years. I met my wife at a gathering hosted by mutual friends. When we struck up a conversation while we were both there with our separate groups of friends, things really took off. We went on our first date a week after we met at the party, and on our second date, I asked her to be my girlfriend. She accepted, and we dated for a year and 9 months before being married. The majority would agree that we fell in love and got married quickly, but I don't believe that has anything to do with my wife cheating. I knew Jessica was one of those women who loved to be in shape all the time before we were married. She participated in a yoga morning-evening class since she loved yoga. I didn't mind Jessica going to her yoga lessons or getting in shape. Since I knew she loved it, I even urged her to continue attending courses even on the days when she didn't feel like it. In our 2 years of marriage, Jessica and I hardly had any problems. Regardless of how furious we were, we showed each other respect and used our words carefully. In terms of money, Jessica and I worked really hard and tried our best to maintain the house, occasionally help our parents, and take care of other things. Before we were divorced, Jessica was already 3 months pregnant, so we had a son who was a year or so old. His arrival made us very happy. It was a source of strength to finally have a son call me Daddy, as I had always aspired to be a father. I worked 2 jobs a day to support myself since I grew up without a father, and I made a vow to my son that I would do everything in my power to provide him with a pleasant existence. Jessica takes excellent care of our son and was a good mother to him. We were unquestionably a happy large family with a lot of wonderful memories. But not long after we were married for 2 years, I discovered something that shattered all we had worked so hard to create. One weekend I was relaxing at home. I typically took Saturdays off, which I used to unwind, assist around the house, and, above all, spend time with our baby. I was by myself at home that Saturday after Jessica had taken our son food shopping. Since there was nothing to do, I got bored and used the tablet to look through our family's photos. My wife and I used to split the tablet, and we typically left it at home. I began looking at the photos of our son from the time he was in his mother's womb until his birth, and up to this point in order to pass the time when I was bored. I was there enjoying the moment when I saw that the tablet was linked to my wife's cloud. I had finished looking through all of our family photos at this point, so I figured it would be a good idea to browse through hers in the hopes of finding some of our old dating shots. I went straight to my wife's gallery. Her half-naked, braless, and other revealing and erotic photos were among the first few I saw. I was perplexed when I first saw them because my wife had not emailed me those images, and I sensed that something was off when I saw her naked on her phone. I never asked for her nude photos, and even during our relationship, she wasn't the type of lady who felt at ease sharing them to me. I was therefore taken aback by the fact that she had such images on her phone. Even though I knew I trusted Jessica a lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was really sending those photos to someone else. I had attempted to stave it off, but the more I struggled, the harder it became to resist. I chose to do some research after attempting to ignore the thoughts, and I was able to view some of her messages via her cloud. After I was able to do that, I discovered a few texts that implied a relationship between her and her yoga trainer. I pretended that nothing was wrong, and we all had supper together when Jessica got home that evening. After she went to bed that night, I looked through her real phone and was horrified to read sexy WhatsApp exchanges between Jessica and her yoga instructor. According to what I've learned, Jessica and her yoga instructor began dating a year after our marriage, and I didn't suspect anything. I didn't suspect anything because she was still acting normally and still cared for me and our son the way she had from the start. I really wanted to wake her that night so I could explain, but I had to keep my feelings in check. I deleted all evidence that I had handled her phone and grabbed pictures of their conversations. I sent them to her yoga center 3 days after I had gathered everything, and her yoga instructor was ultimately suspended. Because she could not bear the embarrassment and all the awful things her coworker would say about her, Jessica too had to stop visiting there. I purposely emailed her nude pictures and other erotic images to a woman in her book club who I knew Jessica had never liked, just to make matters worse. The woman and Jessica did not get along primarily because she was a blabbermouth. I had no doubt that the woman would do a fantastic job of broadcasting and informing their book club members about Jessica's adultery, and that is exactly what transpired. She stopped going to book club meetings, lost all of her important friends, and damaged her reputation. Jessica was unaware that I was responsible for all of this when it was happening. She kept making up reasons not to attend her book club meetings and yoga lessons. I continued to go along with her, even though I knew she was lying. When I finally lost patience with the pretense, I went up to her and told her that I had heard about her romance with her yoga trainer. She instantly began pleading with me when I said that, saying there had been a mix-up and that she would never be unfaithful to me. Coming from someone who dated her yoga trainer for a year right in front of me was amusing. She began to cry when I told her that I didn't want our marriage any longer because I knew the truth, despite her assurances that she would never cheat on me. I had tested for paternity before the altercation, and my son and I were a match. I kicked her out because I couldn't put up with her charade, even if she even began to accuse me of using other people's words and gossip instead of her own. Even though it was hard, I had to kick Jessica out of my home and my life. We separated after a few weeks, and I was granted custody of our son with the assistance of a competent attorney. 2 years have passed since Jessica and I decided to part ways, and every time I think back on it, I am saddened by the fact that she didn't care about our marriage or me, and went to such lengths to have an affair with her yoga instructor. She's such a talented actress that I feel bad for any other man who ends up with her.